the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Hello, Catherine.
Hi, I just realized, should I change I wonder if I put my phone on sideways, if that would be better. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah. Because
Okay,
StreamYard
huh.
doesn't like vertical.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let me fix that right now. Let's see.
There we go.
But now will it let me keep it? Guys, I'm great. That's great. Hold on. Just stare at my phone, my hand for a second. Oh, this is hot mess now. I wasn't prepared for this. Okay, it's a little
That's so
better.
good. So good.
All right.
It's all good in the hood.
People in the comment section can let me know if it's horrific. It's not
No.
straight. It's like I'm a little crooked.
Well, you are a little crooked. That's the problem with you, Catherine.
For real?
We
For
are
real.
all just a little bit crooked, you guys, because I mean that's literally the actual title of this live that we decided to do for ourselves today on this Friday: overcoming trauma, navigating mental breakdowns after Scientology abuse. So we've all been left crooked, and I think it's important to recognize that yes, a lifetime of abuse left us crooked, you guys.
Yeah, literally.
Sometimes just accepting those basic facts can be so empowering because, there's nothing wrong with us, even though we are actually navigating through actual literal mental breakdowns. And I mean, what has been your experience with complex PTSD?
It's been a long journey for sure. But my symptoms started before I even left Scientology. It was shortly after or before I left staff. The symptoms started to really take hold. That's when I started to experience panic attacks, um, more on the regular basis. Uh, and that has continued through. And then leaving Scientology really just stirred everything up. So I would say for the last 3.5, 4 years, it's been a lot more shadow work, like working on myself that brings up more of that trauma. And for me, I have episodes. So basically, understanding how the brain works and
Mhm.
how trauma affects the brain has been a big game changer for me in terms of moving forward because I understand now. I can go, okay, so the pathways and the neurons and the way that trauma is stored, it's not my fault. And it's something that we can work towards fixing and getting better with. But I
And I
mean,
think that's so important because I love how you always kind of bring it back to that, Catherine, which I think is very grounding, given that we spent our entire childhoods being very hocus pocus about our emotions, right? Because we were told, you guys, that the brain was nothing but almost a useless organ. I mean, it wasn't just that the brain didn't matter. It's just like, oh, it's so useless. You're like an
it was just
animal. When you're being your brain, you're being an animal. So they're trying to
right.
disassociate you from your actual body
Well,
at all
right.
times.
Elron said the brain is just a switchboard between the phaeton and the body. Like for Elron, that's all that it was and all that it mattered. And then you're told that as a young child, you go, well, this brain is just how I connect from myself to my body, and that's it, as opposed to what it really is, which is a complex organ that creates and maintains your body's functions. Like PTSD, CPTSD can cause your body to go into an autoimmune response. So often people who have trauma have autoimmune diseases, whether it's hypothyroidism or, of course, I'm blanking on all of them, but there's various,
Hashimoto's and
yeah,
yeah,
Hashimoto's, and uh
there's
it's
what's the
basically, so basically, yeah,
Lyme
so basically,
disease, which seems like all Scientologists have Lyme disease all of a sudden.
oh
That's another
yeah.
autoimmune
Well, I
thing.
think Lyme disease is
It's
something
from the mosquito,
that's,
but then it affects their autoimmune or something.
yeah, it does. It affects your autoimmune disease, but Lyme disease specifically comes from a tick bite,
Yeah.
whereas these other ones are self-creating. So it's basically your immune system and your nervous system go into overdrive because your brain's going, hey, there's an emergency, there's an emergency, there's an emergency. And so your body goes, okay, let's flood with all the hormones, the chemicals we need to get going to flight, whatever it needs to be, fawn, freeze. It's that thing. And then the brain gets into that pattern of continually doing that. And it gets to the point where when our brains aren't doing that, something feels wrong for us. So that's part of the healing process, is to find a new normal. It's okay to not be on edge all the time. It's okay to not be trying to fix things and control and make sure things are okay. That's our parasympathetic nervous system on overdrive. And that's part of the dealing with the trauma, is doing physical work with yourself for your body, and spiritually and mentally,
Mhm.
to heal from that, because there's ways to move forward to at least not be stuck in the trauma all the time.
It's so true. Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
And there's just like so many tools that we have leaned on in this long journey of trying a lot of things. And, one of the things that you have to kind of come into terms about is that this is a condition. This is a mental health condition you are now stuck with. Like, you're very
Mhm.
contrary to how Scientology programmed everything out of us. Oh, as long as you finish this program, these 10 random steps, you all of a sudden are not going to have any problems with anything to do with whatever subject you bring up.
Right.
And the problem, it was all a con game because they were just selling you this confidence boosters, but nothing was backed with any sort of reality, and everything actually was a delusion. And those
Yeah.
delusions were actually very dangerous because we were left further traumatized every single time there was something wrong with us. We were being literally seduced, induced, lured to actually be super traumatized about whatever was troubling us.
Right. And let's not forget also is that the way the system works is you finish a program step, you go and you do your OCA, your Oxford Capacity Analysis, you do your IQ, and you do your aptitude test. Now
Mm.
that OCA is based off of Elron and what he considered to be, quote, the perfect human, or himself. Like, these are how I feel, so therefore this is how you should feel. And so you go and take the test, and they tell you, oh, you see, you're so low down here. Um, that's very, you don't want to be that way. You don't want to have, you don't get along with people, and that's obviously a problem for you. And they basically, they find your ruin or your buttons, but in the process of that, it's almost like they're creating these things. They're labeling them and putting them on you, and you're going, oh yeah, I'm obviously, yeah, I have lack of accord. I'm antagonistic, and that's not okay. I have to be above this one center line, or else I'm this degraded being, quote, downstat, low tone person. And it's like, you're it's almost like this gaslight or manipulation of, like, you're no good this way, now come do all this stuff to fix it. And ultimately, we know from experience, from personal experience, from observation, from stories of others, it just does not work. It does not fix the problem. And in fact, what it's going to do is further compound the problems or create new ones. And again, that's not to say that there aren't some people who are just absolutely in love with Scientology and the processing and what it gives them. But for every person I've talked to who is like that, I can see that they haven't actually addressed the situation as a whole of what it is and how it quote helped them. Because I think people are just disassociating and going, yeah, I'm out of my head and I just see things more. And it's like, but everyone who knows you thinks you're a fucking asshole and you're selfish. And you're like, that's the type of mentality. They're just these Scientologists who aren't able to recognize that, or even ex-Scientologists, they're disillusioned to the point where they can't see, I'm not a better person because of this. I'm just completely disassociated in la la land from it, you know?
Well, and one thing that I would add to what you're saying, because I think you bring up a very good point, is if you are a consenting adult that is being shown these reference, that is being shown these contracts, that is signing up for this level of intense role plays, where you have already agreed to all the rules of engagement. It's not like these rules of engagement are just put upon them and then all of a sudden they had no idea. The rules of engagement they're very upfront. You're going to go in
Yeah.
session. Here's this code. We're going to have to follow this code. Make sure you read everything. And when it comes to luring minors and in subjecting the brain of a minor to such an extreme role play where the minor is in no position to discern a shred of what in the hell these people are pitching to you at 12 years old. There is no capacity in your brain to be like, why are they asking me if I've ever committed a felony for which I haven't been arrested?
Oh, absolutely. When you get asked those questions as a little kid, you almost laugh. Like you're like,
And
oh,
then it's like, oh, go look in another lifetime. So it's
yeah,
like,
and it
how
does
are you
get like
telling
that.
a child that they've committed a felony? And they would cajole them into that question. No, the question read, it's in your subconscious. You did this. You just have to find out when. And you're just like, you're being forced to bring up these things. And that's why I keep pushing back on this false narrative that has been created, Catherine, where everyone's going around pitching L. Ron Hubbard technology as a therapy. Again, like you said at the beginning of this, if you're 21 and up and you love it, we're not here to tell you you don't love it. We're here to tell you you're exposing children that cannot discern, cannot have that level of thing. And we are the poster childs of those kids. We know what it did to us. We're finding out in therapy all manner of things.
Right, absolutely. And again, I don't think you even get to that state of knowing all these things unless you take the first step of therapy. It's like through my whole life, I have all these stories and I would laugh at them and just think, they're so wild and funny. And then I started making friends with non-Scientologists and I would tell these stories and their faces would go like white and look at with like a deer in a headlight going, and I'd laugh and I go, what? And they go, that's not normal. That's abuse. And it's like, you don't even realize it's been normalized and it's been conditioned into us as children that even when you leave, you don't fully comprehend or understand the full existence of the trauma that you faced. And
to add to that, Catherine, they also ad nauseum inside of those hotels. You cannot be critical. You cannot be critical of the technology. If you think you have a problem with the technology, you don't have a problem with the technology. The technology is not being applied correctly. Everything boiled down to, we found an obscure reference over here. So everything was being handled with all of these obscure things as if one memo was going to make a difference. As if the memo of a convicted felon that he wrote, never mind, he wrote over here that you don't have to do it anymore. And it was, again, going back to a gaslighting chamber, because these sessions are the single most dangerous aspect of Scientology that's been the most overlooked, that's been the most trivialized, that's been, if they're not doing these sessions inside those hotels, Catherine, there's nothing else to do inside of the hotels. Scientology is sessions. The whole thing exists so that those sessions can occur, can take place.
Right.
So, the corporate media is filled with narratives that have nothing to do with addressing what gets done in those sessions and what gets done to kids. Because never mind, hey, adults, they love it, they like it, they consented, they can speak for themselves. Because so far, I have yet to hear many complaints from adults going through those sessions. So far, we still hear the pitch, oh, well, the sessions were sort of good. It was all sort of common sense. And it's like, again, common sense. How in the hell did parents put kids up to be locked up against their will and call that common sense?
I mean, again, and I hear you. And, we've had many conversations, and I don't disagree with many of these things. As I continue my journey and dealing with what I have, that I'm right now basically saving my 76-year-old father, who has been in Scientology since his early 20s and has been neglected and abused for the last few years, losing his memory, suffering from dementia. And I'm frustrated for him because I know he just kept giving Scientology money, thinking he could get fixed. And I have empathy for him because I go, okay, something's happened where he's drunk the Kool-Aid to the point that he's gotten himself in this horrific situation, right? But also at the same time, I still feel like I can hold him accountable for the fact that what he as a parent put me through in my life, and the consequences I had to face as a human being in Scientology through the age of birth to 37 years of age when I left, but I also realize there's people who are genuinely trusting people. I remember my very first therapist I went to, and I was so nervous of going. I hadn't left Scientology yet. And I was talking to her about these Scientology things, and her response was, sounds like your parents were very gullible. And I took offense to that at that point. I was like, oh, how very dare you. But looking at it, I go, it's almost to that state. People somehow finally make the decision. What L. Ron Hubbard says, when Daddy L. Ron or Ron Howard. I love that. I don't know if you saw that yet, but the L. Ron Howard is great. It's from some sketch, but something switches in their brains where they just go, yeah, whatever L. Ron says is true and factual. And none of these people would lie to me. We're all Scientologists and we all follow the rules and we're all ethical and the most ethical people on this planet. And I think that there's a couple different groups in Scientology. I think there's people who truly believe that, who can get scammed by fellow Scientologists very easily because they go, oh, well, he's a Scientologist. Of course, he's not going to lie to me. He wouldn't do anything illegal. Yeah. And then there's the other Scientologists who are like, fuck that guy. I know for sure that he's going to screw me over. So I'm making sure everything's in writing. Like there's just different kinds of people, I think. But I'm not trying to negate the fact that whether you're a gullible person who's genuine in believing or a sadistic person who's just using it, either way, they're still accountable for those things, in which they were responsible for. And I mean responsible as in they chose to have children. They chose to raise those children in Scientology and apply Scientology, quote, technology to their children.
Here's the thing too, though, Catherine, it's like two things can be true at once. And that is part of growing up. That's part of maturing. That's part of processing some of this trauma. I mean, the work that you're doing with your father, it's literally God's work. It requires you to be completely drop the judgment, completely process your trauma, even though this man is responsible personally. I mean, now he's got Alzheimer's, you guys. Like now he cannot even have a memory. Right. And it's like I've seen the work that Catherine has done with her father, and it's so commendable and it's so needed. I mean, the humanity wasn't stripped away from you. And that's when you're on the flip side of the trauma. And that's the only saving, winning grace out of doing any trauma work, you guys, because you can reconcile with that humanity. You do have the time to separate the truth from the lies. So you can keep two things in your brain at once and not have to be so, has to be black or white. Like, my dad is an asshole. Like, now he deserves to, ruin himself, and revenge is not the answer. We know that. There's nothing more religious than we're not here for revenge. And as much as we are criticizing AF what these memos told these people to do, as gullible as they may be, I have a hesitation to call felons gullibles, because that's the problem with what they became as an adult collective, the whole lot of them. My problem is not just my parents. My problem is not just Shelly
Right.
Miscavige. My problem is not just David Miscavige. My problem is not just Debbie Cook or Marty. It's all of them. What
Yes,
it
the
took
adults as a collective
to have a problem. All of them are in the same exact boat, if you will. They chose
Right.
it. They loved it. They made a choice.
Right.
Now, yeah, I mean, that choice created a hell for all the kids. So that's why it's important to talk about it. That's why it's important to be as upfront about the facts as it's needed in order to create the awareness necessary in the collective to go, oh yeah, no more kids should go through that. You're right, you guys. That's literally all we are asking. The day this hotel becomes 21 and under, everyone else that's 21 and up can sort it out. And yes, anyone that can grab their parent and help them, given that they have the full context of how the parent got there. I get that everything happened with context, right? You guys, like, and not everyone is the same, but a lot of these Scientology parents have felonies written all over them and things that they were so implicated in that they cannot separate themselves. Like, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. It sucks that that's our truth. It sucks that our parents were gullible. It sucks that they were scammed. It sucks that we're part of a con game that was adults only at best. But anything they've done to kids, they now need to own up as a collective of adults. And we're calling for all Scientology parents to stop immediately auditing kids, stop immediately subjecting them to ethics handlings. It's that simple. This is not a complicated message. This is not a conversation we need to have ad nauseum. It's like we're only asking for what was done to us as kids not to be done to more kids. It's not safe. You are a parent now, Catherine. You know the gullibility. You know the vulnerability. If those parents aren't schooled, and yes, they get very pressed when you tell them that they did anything wrong because they are so confident that they didn't do anything wrong. Well, you know what? That's called being a malignant narcissist, that you have no self-reflection. And every time you go to your audits, you self-reflect on all the wrong things because somehow putting your son in session, putting your underage daughter in session is not a withhold these people ever get off, you guys.
No,
This is
because
that they
that's
get
just
commended for, oh, you put your child in session. And to your point, Catherine, like, that's a con. Like, why are they being incentivized to push this on their kids? But yet they are adults and they are parents. And if they're making decisions that are on their face, so indefensible, Houston, y'all have a big AF problem. You cannot defend what you did to kids. Everything else that happened to adults, you know what? It's too complicated for even for us to opine. We don't even have the bandwidth with our CPTSD that we have. But the bandwidth that we do have is to bring up these truths, bring up these facts, given that we were made front row experts. We never wanted to do anything with the technology. We never wanted to audit people. We never wanted to be part of this stupid shit. Like, we were embarrassed. I mean, I remember we talked about this, Catherine. It's like we were always embarrassed. Like, when people asked us, what's your religion? We always like have a lie. Oh, my parents are Catholic. When I was in Mexico, no one knew that I was a Scientologist. Like, it was the most embarrassing thing to tell anybody because our parents were crazy. Like, it was so nauseating, but yet we still always got roped into the culture because, our parents were so obsessed. They were manic.
we had no other choice. We had nowhere else to turn or ability to express anything else other than I'm in 100% whatever L. Ron Hubbard says. I believe, and all I want to do is clear this planet and make everything great. and abide by all the rules. And that's a lot to ask of a child, a young child. You know, it's not something that you
Those
should be
rules are
asking.
adult only, guys. Those games are only for adults. Very strict. I mean, that's why it becomes a simple conversation to have. That's why we're advocating for something simple. We're not here to meddle with what adults want to do in their 21 and up stage. If they get to that level, they're going to have to figure it out. You know what I mean? It's like it's a whole hotel that cannot operate with minors to be doing these posts. They cannot have auditors as kids. They cannot have supervisors as kids. They cannot have ethics officers as kids.
It's very inappropriate. I mean, if you just look at it, even from just as basic, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, it's not appropriate to have anyone under 18 speaking about any of the things that you go see an ethics officer for. For those who've never been in and don't understand, the ethics officer is one of those people that you tell everything to, and they will ask you anything point blank. I mean, I'm talking if you're self-pleasure person, you know, they're gonna ask you questions on the meter and get every juicy detail about what you're doing. You're in the shower? Okay, good. How often do you do it in the shower? You know, this is like at under 18, you should not be having this kind of conversation with an adult. It also changes the way as a child you're thinking about yourself and life. That's how you get that grooming. You're basically essentially being groomed to be like, yeah, I'm a billion years old and my body is young, but it doesn't matter. And then you get these people who are are being exposed to.
Oops. She just jumped off. Oh, here she is again.
Oh,
Oh,
there.
you.
It was so weird. It just went clicked out for a second.
Yeah.
But that aspect too is like it's really important for people to understand is that it's just so inappropriate for anyone under 18 to be having a conversation with an adult going, yeah, tell me about how you are seeing sex workers regularly. Give me all the
This
detail.
is
Where do you
actually
go? Pick them
producing
up.
inappropriate material. It actually goes more than just inappropriate, right? Inappropriate is like, oh, it's kind of weird, like that shouldn't happen. But this is actually exposing children and then content being created on because everything is being video recorded, as you know, Catherine. All our sessions were
Yeah,
being video recorded. All these people were watching what they were asking us. And then
yeah,
in what world are adults really needed inside a hotel to be listening to how a 16-year-old girl is masturbating? Like to your point, and how did you masturbate, and which finger did you use, and how far up did you go, and what type of lubricant did you put on, and what were you thinking? Tell me every detail of what you were thinking while you were masturbating and putting your finger up your you know what. Like
yeah. And then
in
these
what
are
world is
where
that? Oh yeah, but here, oh yeah, you're gonna really clear it. The energy's gonna disappear. Like it's like what the fuck type of fucked up pitch is that?
exactly. Well, and that's the thing again, is it goes back to it's like you have this quote aberration. So they're just going to use the Scientology terms. You have an aberration on the time track, and we're just going to audit it out. And that's that term, audit it out, meaning you can physically remove this aberration from a person by picking up the cans and having these sessions of
And
how
again, everything
often
you're
did you do these
describing right
things?
now, Catherine, is literally infantile talking, right? Because
Right.
all of these adults are infantilized, and that's what makes the place so dangerous. They're all playing a game. They're all using these words. We all use it here. Ha ha ha. He he he. We can just change the words of reality to these infantile words that our daddy L. Ron Hubbard told us to all use. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, you have a place filled with depraved adults that are pretending that kids are not kids. And
Right.
the reason part of our trauma recovery is to be able to be the change we want to see. No one seems to be raising these points. And in the year 2023, we really wonder why. Why is it taking so long? Why has
Yeah.
nothing stopped? Why are kids still being subjected to this? Why is nobody caring? Why is the FBI not all over this? You know,
Right.
they went and helped all the gymnasts that were being abused by Larry Nassar, but apparently we are just you know, a special kind of lower end citizen that deserved what
Yeah.
happened to us, is what we're still being
Well,
told in
I
this year
want to
2023.
say
You deserved it. You signed a contract.
right.
That's your
And
fault now. You
I
pulled it
want you
in.
to know, Serge, I want you to know that it is not your fault. No matter how many times we were told it's our fault, it's not your fault. You didn't do this. You didn't ask to do this. You were abused and neglected and mistreated. You deserved love, unconditional love, and support to make you be the best version of you, not some version of Scientology. I want you to know that from the depths of my soul that you did not deserve that. And I know that you didn't sign up willingly. And I know you didn't do it because you thought this is the best for me. I know you did it because you just wanted your parents to goddamn love you and you wanted to be accepted and you wanted to be that good kid. And it's not fair that any of us had to go through this. And I think that it's also important for us to remember that we all have our own story and our own journey. And just like there's certain people who fight for climate change, there's people who fight to end genocide. You know, like we all have our own things that are our driving force or our passion that goes, this is what I can speak with. And we also have to remember that our brains, again, are going to try and protect us. It's going to try and not have you address something or come up with something that you can't handle. So it's important, I think, for us to remember that it's like we create space to remind people we did not deserve this. We did not sign up. None of the children consciously signed up or deserve this. Um, but
And
also
I think that's
creating
that awareness
space.
that's spreading this word, to be honest. You know what I mean? It's like, I know I
Yeah,
don't deserve it. And it's part of understanding that I didn't deserve it now that I can finally advocate, because if I didn't deserve it, no other child in there deserves it either. And that's,
absolutely.
you know, it's like, yes, we're coming up and sounding like a broken record, but you know, it's okay, because again, it's like we can only be making the points that we wish somebody would have been making about us being stuck inside the hotel. It's going to need
Right.
people that really understand what it is. It's going to need people that had a front row seat at how it's being done.
Well, and I
And
think that's why earlier, when we were talking, I mentioned to you like sharing the stories because again, it goes back to like for me where I started talking to non-Scientologists and I'd say a story and they'd be like, "That's not normal," and I'd go, "It's not? You didn't do that? Oh, was that abuse?" Is that my hope is that there's gonna be a Scientologist who's comes across our video, and if we can share our stories, going, "By the way, this is not normal." That we went through this, if that can put a little seed or of doubt into that other person, that Scientologist who's going,
well, but part of
maybe
it,
it
and
isn't right.
I hear that, Catherine, but I think part of it is too, is calling out the atrocities for what they are, because it's sort of like they have to wake up, they have to open their eyes. You know, it's like sometimes I feel like some of the stuff gets a little bit, oh, let's cradle and canoodle them, because you know, if they just have a little seed of doubt, is that they gotta be confronted. Like if you're a father or a mother that is subjecting their kids to the audits, we are confronting you because we know what is implicated in that session. So
Totally, and
with
I
that
don't disagree
certainty,
with
we can
that.
go at you and say, no, hell no, you don't lock up a kid against their will. Hell no,
Right.
you ask disgusting, depraved questions. Hell no, you video record it and watch it, and all the adults laugh about it. And, you know, senior CSs are off masturbating to it and all that disgusting dysfunction that we all witnessed that was normalized when we were there. And it's like, the outrage and the lack of outrage, you guys, is sometimes, you know, the thing that makes me question what in the literal hell is actually going on. Because, you know, as much as we speak very clearly to the facts and we have all the receipts in the world that you could possibly imagine, I mean, each one of us has a case that's been made up about our file, the abuse that was done on us. They were recording it, and they thought, well, as long as we always record it and it's not abuse. And it's like, no, we woke up and I was like, you know, that case we kept building, that's my legal case. All the abuse you did
Mm,
to me, all the times you locked me up against my will, you recorded that. I have all the proofs. I have all the receipts. I have everything you did to me. And it's like,
mm-hmm.
we didn't agree to this adult only game. And that's why, the
Right.
adults that were part of this, I'm sorry, there's only bad news for y'all. You were following the writings of of a convicted indicted felon that was running away, that normalized child trafficking at large, that ran circles around the media and the government and the FBI, and no one can catch him. No one can figure out anything, according to what we're being told still 73 years later, of this con game haven't been allowed to get to as far as it's gotten. And
Right.
the receipts keep coming from Reese, relatable Reese, that keeps showing us how moms are subjecting their kids in session today, and who's there as the opposition. And
Oh,
how
I
do you
definitely.
confront an adult mom that you're like, well, I can't tell this woman not to put their kid in session because that's her religious belief. And I mean, I guess we really are saying that everyone can raise their kids in whatever way they want. But it's like, look how that worked out for Ruby Frankie. That was, tying her kids and putting them in unthinkable punishments. And it's like, no, you guys, like, child abuse is a black and white issue. It's not
Right.
like we
And
can all
again,
have
I don't
millions of
disagree.
opinions about what it. They were abusing the kids, and they are abusing them now, and they continue to abuse them every day when we have these conversations. I mean, that's part of the CPTSD. The trigger is
Mm-hmm.
that, there's a gnawing sense inside of us that says they're still doing it. They're still doing it right now. Oh yeah, they just did it again. Oh yeah, you know what? They
Mm-hmm.
just put five more kids in the same sessions that we were kept in. Those
Mm-hmm.
interrogations are enhanced interrogation techniques. They would constitute as torture if a country was found to be locking people indefinitely in rooms for 9 to 10 hours until they had their way with them and they broke them to pieces. So again, if adults want to get into that and they really want to sign up for that, figure it out if you really want to do it. Like, you're being an advocate for your dad and you're now advocating on his behalf. Never mind, he
Mm-hmm.
lost his mind. So now the L.
Yeah.
Ron Hubbard programming and the technology, you guys, apparently you get Alzheimer's, and all those thousands of dollars he spent went to nothing because the
Hundreds.
programming
I
is
mean,
gone.
hundreds. Yeah.
Hundreds of
Hundreds and
thousands of
hundreds.
dollars.
Yeah.
So
Close,
the
at
programming is
least a
done, and
million.
now, he's just like a man with a blank slate. And I mean, that's the miracle to me, Catherine, of, kind of how you're talking about me, but it's like, I admire you for having that strength and that compassion and that humanity, and to show up for your dad and to pick him out of the mud. It's like, an eye for an eye is not the solution, you guys. But
Right.
us confronting the facts and exposing them is not an eye for an eye. Because if we're
No.
coming here and sounding the alarm for kids, we're sounding the alarm for every one last shred of person inside those hotels that all signed up a contract that was never in their best interest. Period. Full stop. Stop making it complicated. We don't need a million lawyers to figure out what is so BS obvious, literally.
Yeah, and I think that it's also important. So, like, earlier we were talking about getting an understanding specifically of more of how it is to be raised as Scientologists. We got checkouts for our cleaning. So, like, I'm 10 years old, 9 years old. Me and my god sisters are out on the front lawn cleaning my godfather's car by ourselves, and then dry it, and then he comes out to do a checkout and says this is a quote overt product, do it again. And that's
9 years
also
old?
important. Yeah, like 9 or 10. And that's I think important for people to understand is it's not just the Scientology auditing that's abusive. It's the behavior and the rules and the policies. And that's what's important is that the parents apply the policies
The delusions
to
of
the
grandeur, I
children.
would say, Catherine. I think that's the easiest way to describe it. It's like these people got horrible delusions of grandeur. And
Yeah.
again, unfortunately, it was not grounded in any truth. They took positions on kids that are unthinkable. And again, it's like, no adults that are going around pretending kids are adults are safe to leave with kids. It's just
No.
indefensible. No one can make that make
It's
sense to us now. Like today, again, I don't need to hear every last thing that was wrong with L. Ron Hubbard. He made the one pitch where he put kids and adults in the same playing field, and then he put them all in a hotel. I mean, doesn't take a genius to figure
And
out
we
what in the hell
believed
is
it.
wrong with that.
Yeah, and we believed it. We were like, even as kids, we're like, I'm an adult and I just am in a small body, and as soon as I get bigger, I'll be able to do everything. And like I'm already able to make my own decisions. And
That's
it's like
such a good point, Catherine. Because
it's
yeah,
a
at the time, you
lie.
guys, they were building us as these little narcissists, and we thought we were very special, and we were given a lot of power, and we were chastising the adults, yelling at the adults. I mean, I was a nightmare to some of these adults. I was yelled, "You're gonna go and clean dishes now, Gerda
Yeah.
Wimgarden, go and clean dishes. You don't confront evil. You need to start pulling the whistles in those sessions, Gerda. You're so out tech. You're so out ethics. You're disgusting." Like,
Yeah.
that's how amazing, Serge. You're such a great, tough supervisor. I mean, I would literally have these women that were just like that with us. All the executives spoke like that, you guys, except that add 10 more swear words in there. You're fucking out ethics. Like, the exec used the F words. Every other word they were saying was
And it's
fucking, and you fucking out ethics, and you fucking downstat, and get your
well, it's
fucking ethics
fucking,
in.
and then a degrade, and then a degradation. Oh my god, I can't even talk anymore. Something degrading, right? Like you're downstat, you're a degraded being, you're
All manner of
you have
insults,
overts,
ridiculous
your PTS.
insults that, again, it's like it's all programmed dysfunction, because all these definitions meant nothing. But between us and our abusers, they meant a lot. And that's the problem with victims. That's the grooming that you were talking about. And again, that's why we're sounding the alarm on the whole entire thing. No one is safe in there. No one that's following a book of L. Ron Hubbard where he's pitching that any 7-year-old should be completely okay with being passionately kissed by a man is okay. Because some people go, oh, yeah, but at the beginning, it was kind of common sense. If the first book pitches pedophilia to that degree, and again, you guys, before anybody goes, oh, what, Serge, like that book is so big, they didn't read that. These people read everything. They had to do essays, they had to do demos, they had to do clay demos of all these concepts. So when we talk about grooming these concepts, we couldn't be sounding the alarm more on that grooming, because that grooming, all that stuff that happens in those courses, which I was a part of, is what's disgusting, you guys. Like, that's what no course rooms can exist that are grooming people to abuse others with dolls. Like, that's all it took. Oh, here, a doll. Okay, rehearse the lines. It was like
An
an acting
actual rag
school.
doll. Yeah, like a
It
literal
was like
rag
we were in
doll.
some sort of acting school, like just some ugly rag doll. Insult the doll, do this to the doll. The doll wants to scream. Ask the doll if she've ever raped anybody. Like, all of these disgusting things you do with a doll first. And
And
if
you
you
normalize
bring
it and you do it
underage
over and over
kids
again.
to be groomed with dolls and ask them about masturbation and rapes and all that disgusting stuff, it's like, in what world is that okay and defensible? Because all the Scientology parents were aware. So before anybody can go, oh, yeah, but your parents must have not known, they knew. They didn't care. They pretended it was good for us. And it's like, okay, well, we now know that it wasn't, and it's not for any kid in there. And if the parents say it's okay, it doesn't mean it's okay. And that's what we're pushing back on these false narratives. Again, it's like, well, our parents thought it was okay. Well, you know what? It turned out it wasn't. It's that simple. Get off your ego. You made a mistake. You committed a crime. You committed a felony. By all means, like, show us that you care. Show us that you change. Show us that you're going to take responsibility now. You know what I mean? Like, it's not off the table to take responsibility, to take accountability. That's the only thing that's going to change what's going on in the hotels. Like, until adults don't start calling themselves out, no child is safe inside of those hotels. And it cannot just only be up to you and me and all the other second generations that are speaking on behalf of these issues to change the culture inside. Because the parents that were all about it need to come forward with what they did themselves. Oh, yeah, I did donate 2 kids to the Sea Org. I did reap financial rewards as a result. I mean, as if not all of them reap those rewards. And again, we go back to that same bucket, Catherine. It's like, this isn't personal. We're not going into personal vendetta with nobody. Like, we feel sorry for our parents. They are victims, but they are victims and also felons. So it's like we have to reconcile with that truth. It sucks to be us. It definitely does. But you know what? We're on the flip side of it. Like today, it doesn't
Right.
affect us. Today, we have resources. Today, we have support. Today, we have the ability to evolve past that trauma. It's not who we are. We're not identifying with it anymore. But part of not identifying with it is calling it out. Because if you're not calling
Mhm.
it out, then you're still identifying with it. You're still saying, "Oh yeah, you know what? It was a good old time that I had in there." And you know
Right.
what? It's like,
Or at the very least going, well, it wasn't that bad. And it negates and lessens the truth of the matter is, and again, I think some leave and go, it's not that bad in a coping manner, right? Like it wasn't that bad. But I think it's important to realize that it was that bad, but you get through those feelings of that. You get through that emotional turmoil of going, it was that bad. I shouldn't have done that. What do I do now? How do I be a
and it's
parent?
almost
How
like
do
you
I
guys, it's almost like getting their ethics in, right? It's like once they realize what they were doing that was wrong, they can all do something effective about it. They can make amends, they can take accountability,
exactly
they can change, they can reform, they can, all we are asking is for that to stop to kids.
right?
That's all the amends we need from any parent. Do your part to stop what's being done to kids right now. Now, what
Yeah,
does that constitute? I don't know. Go speak to the FBI. Go organize all of yourselves. I want 500 parents to show up at an FBI office to tell them what kind of kids they put into the Sea Org and who they were
yeah,
cutting deals with and who said what and where's the contracts and what kind of country were they coming from and all of that information. Since the
right. And I
FBI
think that it's
cannot take it
important.
upon themselves to do the investigation, well, you know what? You Scientology parents can do the investigations between yourselves. You
Right.
can all
And it's
cut a
actually
deal
not
of
that hard.
immunity. We don't give an F. We want
Right.
to stop what's being done to kids. Whoever's committing these crimes as we speak needs to see very real jail cells. Because you know what? That's what they call the law. The law says you commit a crime, you go to jail. We're not here to cradle and canoodle you and we're going to do an ethics handling in a hotel and all of a sudden you're not going to be a child trafficker. The people that were child traffickers need to meet the full weight of the law because it's either
Yeah.
we live in a country of laws or we don't live in a country of laws. And so far, we have not lived in a country of laws. For all of our infancy, there were no laws applied inside of those hotels, except what these people were doing to us. And come
Right.
to find out, it was all against the law. It was all child neglect, false imprisonment, reckless discernment. It was not having, it was taking full ownership of us, yet not giving an F about any of the kids they acquired.
Yeah.
So sucks to be an executive in the Sea Org. It really is a bad day to be that executive that did this at scale for 17 years, like Debbie Cook, like Marty Rathbun, like all manner of people. If you did that, then you're implicated, then no one can help you. You were committing
Yeah.
criminal activity every day. And just because no one has called you out does not mean that you weren't committing those crimes.
Yeah. And again, I think that a lot of people can get lost and go like, well, how can I fix it or how can I do anything? Listen, there's enough ex-Scientologists. There's a network now where any situation you're facing, leaving Scientology or already having left Scientology, there's a big enough network of us ex Scientologists that you're not alone. You can find a resource for therapy, for a lawyer, for FBI, for a local police station, anything you may need. We have such a big community
Mhm.
that it's not like it was in the early 2000s where you're leaving and you're going, I'm all alone. Like I almost think that there's probably a significantly larger amount of people out than there are actively like in and going in course in sessions daily. I know that there's a lot of people who are going to be Scientologists and live their lives as Scientologists, but aren't actively going in. And and
But I
even if you're
think
not
we have
going
to
in,
also
you're
even
living
increase the pressure on
Scientology.
that, Catherine, because it's like, look, if you are in any way, shape, or form endorsing these hotels, with your loyalty, with your money, with your tax write-offs, with your kids, with your buying of books or whatever, you are backing up something disgusting. And if you don't know, now you know. And that's why it's
Right.
important for us to talk about these facts, because it's like, okay, yeah, we didn't know. We thought it was this. We thought it was that. Well, you know what? It turns out it wasn't any of that. It was child trafficking at scale, child abuse at
Yeah.
scale, all supervised by y'all, all endorsed by y'all, all paid by y'all. All the parents put a bad example to another parent because my parents saw your parents do it. So they thought, okay, well, if Catherine's people are doing it, then I should also do it. And everybody was keeping up with the Joneses
Yeah.
like blind idiots. And now we're saying, no, y'all, you really need advocates on your side telling you don't do that. Don't buy that pitch from L. Ron Hubbard. Like, think about it again. Oh, you thought it was therapy? Nope, it wasn't therapy. Abuse of kids is never going to be therapeutic. So the sooner you figure that out, the sooner then you start questioning other stuff, because that's
Yeah.
the one thing that is indefensible. Abusing kids is indefensible. Adults locking up themselves in those hotels, no one can come to your rescue. You're going to have to open your own eyes, just as if you were a crack addict on the street. No one can come and get you to stop taking the crack. You've got to
Right.
take those steps to get sober. You're all
Exactly.
are under the influence of L. Ron Hubbard. That's the good news for all the criminals. You were under the influence of something. None of the L. Ron Hubbard ideas were yours. So you know what? That's the good news for you. Abusing kids at scale wasn't your idea. Never mind, you implemented them all. So now you got to deal with the fact that it wasn't your idea, but it was implemented by y'all. So
Yeah.
you still have to
Honestly,
take a ton of accountability because you were
Yeah.
the vehicle used in this wide-ranging criminal conspiracy. And everyone is implicated in this org board from the very top to the very bottom, between
And I can
all of the
speak-
executives that controlled the trafficking to all of the parents that were feeding the kids to be trafficked.
And I can speak as a parent specifically for those who maybe get scared about that idea. Like, oh my God, I have to admit that I fucked up and I raised my kids wrong. I've done it. You know, when we left, my youngest wasn't old enough to quite comprehend, but my oldest was. So I had to sit down and have that honest conversation, that tough hey, just so you know, I was raised in Scientology and I was raised to have these beliefs and ideas, and I genuinely thought they were real. But my eyes have been opened up and I see that those were wrong. And I raised you in certain ways and treated you in these certain ways that I see are not okay now. And I'm really sorry. And from this moment forward, I will never do those things again. And I will learn how to parent you differently. That's what I had to do with my 8-year-old kid at the time, because that's what he needed and deserved. He deserved to hear, hey, as your parent, I messed up and I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that anymore. I see that was wrong. I'm going to fix it and then move forward. And we do therapy and we have talks, and I'm constantly reading more books and learning more how to be a better parent. That's how
Our
you do
punishment to our parents, you guys, would be to completely walk away and leave them completely lacking the self-reflection that they don't have, that was taken away from them. Again, we understand that they were told they can't have a single shred of a critical thinking skill for themselves. That was demonized. That was criminalized. You cannot say L. Ron Hubbard did anything wrong. So we are calling out that stupidity, because our brains today have the intellect to understand that that is a complete and utter bullshit pitch that's working against them on the daily. So if we didn't care for our parents, we would just leave them there committing more crimes, abusing more kids, having no clue what in the hell they're doing and what they're about. You know, if you're here this lifetime, you know, forget about all this infantilized talk about, oh, another lifetime and this and that. Again, it's like, no, you can't take it that far. If you want to do those games with adults, find other adults that want to play that game with you. But you're not going to tell another child that, no, another lifetime and you're not your body, so I can molest you and then you can float it in a session. That is not a thing. So all of these people that really think they have a technology that really floats things, including but not limited to that level of felony perpetrated on children, is unacceptable AF. This is
Right.
not a long conversation we need to have. These are just, okay, this is unacceptable. This needs to change now, not in 10 years. And when Congress figures it out, like they're not going to figure out anything.
Yeah.
This
And
is
I think
something
that
that needs
that's
to
what,
change from within the community. The
yeah,
community of ex-Scientologists and Scientologists. The ex-Scientology community needs to get on the fucking cases of the Scientologists and be like,
absolutely. If
no,
you're an
I'm going to
ex-Scientologist,
report you to child services because you're putting your kid in session. And I just found out through a Facebook group that you're actually putting your kid in session. And that is unacceptable. That kid doesn't
yeah,
have a way to speak for themselves. We would know. We were put to do that shit. And child services cannot say, oh, no, we're so dumb. We can't figure anything out. No. If kids are locked up against their will, people need to come and get them out of that situation.
every policy that L. Ron Hubbard has ever created in regards to children does more harm than good. So whether the parents are taking them into session or applying ethics technology or PTS, don't forget that these parents, when their kids get sick, what's the first thing your parents always ask you when you're sick? Did you have any upsets or anyone squish you or make you feel less? Not, let me take you
Make
to
you
the
feel bad about
doctor.
Scientology, guys. Like
Yeah.
this pathology that was reflected in, if any sources came to us, if an aunt came and said, are you okay? Are you happy in the Sea Org? What? You got sick? That's what I had to tell. I had an aunt that committed that literally off herself, Catherine. My only aunt that off herself because she wasn't a Scientologist because she asked for a refund and she got in all this trouble and half of my family like kicked her out of the family, and she was the only one that was college educated that actually had a really successful business with an actual doctor. And, then she literally off herself and
Oh my
left
God.
a letter where she was talking about all of the Scientology abuse and confusion that it made for my family. And I remember her asking me when I was a child in the RPF because my grandfather was having cancer. So they finally let me go for I think like 3 days to fly from Florida to El Paso to be there for his operation. And my aunt asked me, the one that was on a Scientologist, like, are you happy doing what you're doing? And then I got sick and then I had to say that it was my aunt that was asking questions about it. And again, it's like we were told that any type of counter effect to us doing Scientology, then that was the thing that was making us sick. I mean,
Exactly.
imagine that. Like what kind of adult tells a child that, if they realize they're being abused and they get sick, oh, is the person that's bringing up and highlighting that you're being abused.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's not, again, it goes back to that's neglect and abuse in the form of you're not treating the child who is sick. You're now internalizing for them, oh, I'm sick because I did something. I
Well, and at the time,
pulled
she had
something
no
in.
way of pulling the string anymore, right? Because it's like
Right. No,
all
of
she
course
knew
not.
is I was part of this hotel and this religion and da da da. And my parents would literally go insane if any kind of conversation was had that was even more than that. Like she tried to kind of like ask me really
Yeah.
softly over here, and I didn't talk about the conversation until I came back and then got sick and then got told that I was a PTS and then got told that I
Hmm.
needed to like talk about my aunt. And then, 3 months later, she committed literally.
And
So
again, I go back to that wasn't even having to do necessarily like the auditing aside, the way you were treated by the parents, the adults, they were applying Scientology to you. So again, it goes back to Scientology.
the criminal act was Scientology, guys. Like
Yeah.
always, it's like these adults follow those policies. The criminal act all boils down to applying the memos of a convicted, indicted felon that made these people be know it alls, acting as full, entitled know it alls. From
Yes.
reading memos that made not a shred of sense. They're all written in hocus pocus. They're all written to sound themselves very intellectual, and they couldn't be the biggest idiots in the world. And
I
again,
mean, let's
this
go
is
back to
what tough
also,
love looks like. Like, yeah, my dad is a
yeah,
total idiot.
yeah.
Sorry, dad, you bought the pitch. You're an idiot. Wake up from it. Stop being a baby. Grow up. Make different choices now. You don't
Yeah.
have Alzheimer's.
Stop being
So you
rigid.
can still make conscious choices to be their friend. And we're
Yeah.
advocating for you to do better because, again, if we know that all these people are under the influence and we just leave them there at the hotel to rot, then what does that say about us actually confronting our trauma? The only
Right,
reason we're
exactly.
confronting this trauma is because we know that everyone's getting traumatized. So, to that degree, we have to advocate on their behalf because they don't have anyone to advocate for them.
Yeah. All right. I love these
So,
comments. So many great
so many
supportive
great
comments. And
comments. Thank you, Grounded Truth. Thank you, Amanda. Case in the house. Hi, Joe. Long time no see.
I saw Kay's in the house. Hi, Kay.
This one says, Serge, I wish I could take away your pain and the scars. I have severe complex PTSD. Do you feel like you have always have to have your guard? Hug. Well, thank you for your question, Rabbit Kisses. I mean, yes and no, you guys. I mean, we have incredible support systems now. We have a lot of people on our side that are supporting us and helping us in having our guard up. I mean, intrinsically, I guess we do. When I really think about it, I'm like, yeah, I guess I do have it always up because it's always
I
like,
mean, always.
you know,
It's
we
one of those
lived
things
in
I'm
a
working on.
terror hotel, so our survival was contingent on us having that guard up and understanding and having to navigate these extremely
Yeah.
ridiculous scenarios, right? Because if we didn't think for ourselves, even though it was required of us, even as kids, navigating through all this bureaucracy and all this bullshit and all these lies. So yeah, there's a part of us that is, I think, always going to have our guard up, but in a good
Yeah.
way, in a better way. I mean, the more we do our therapy and we get help, the less it becomes automatic. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, it's definitely a conscious effort to not be on high alert. And of course, when I'm experiencing a heavy PTSD period, that high alert is on full blown, like 100%. And it's part of the experience of being on staff or living as a Scientologist child is you're always almost about to get caught doing something. Like if you're on post and you're just sitting there, what are you doing? What are you? And you'll get in trouble. You get written up. You get sent to ethics. It's like so you get on high alert for everything because that's how we only could survive.
Yeah, and again, it
But
speaks to
it's
that
a good
whole like
question.
slavery system, you guys, because that's not normal. That's not how you could be run 365 days a week, being yelled at and screamed at and supervised and spoken to in the way these people were speaking. Like it just that's
Yeah,
being called out. And then this
yeah.
comment here, this is such a hard position to be in. Thank you, Amanda. I think that she was talking about when you were talking about your dad.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's very difficult. We're making it through, and we'll talk more about the whole process of taking him into our house and saving him essentially from the abuse and the neglect. But we're making it through, luckily, and we've got a lot of support, so I appreciate that.
Yeah. And Vicky May says, you hold the meter things while they ask you questions or when they talk about your problems or both? Yeah, Miss Vicky, we have to hold the meter at all times. Like you cannot move. You have to like literally be strapped to that thing. You cannot move. You cannot breathe. Like literally you have to be like, if you take a big breath, they're like, okay, are you good? Are you good? Like,
Yeah,
because everything influences the emitter. So they always require you to be very, very like stuck. And as
yeah,
kids,
don't
it's
rigid.
so it's nauseating. Like it's literally so uncomfortable and it just adds a level of uncomfortability. Like, like that's why I equate it to like literal intellectual rape because you are being in this room being asked disgusting, depraved questions. You have no way to set a single shred of a boundary. And
Yeah,
and it goes on for hours and hours and hours on end. And nothing about the sessions makes sense. They're go earlier, similar, go here, go there, whatever. And it's like you just like 2-3 hours go by, and the only time they stop is if you disassociate enough to pretend that you loved what they just did to you.
Yeah,
So
you
as
always
kids,
hope
we
for a
always have
big
to lie and say, "Oh
disassociation.
my God, I feel so great. I feel so amazing." And, and again, it's like, that's disgusting. No kid should be put into that category ever.
Yeah.
Inappropriate is definitely not a strong enough word, more like criminal. Yeah, I think about the sessions.
Yeah. Yes, I saw that comment and I do agree. Inappropriate, again, a lot of these words that we use are not strong enough for these situations. Inappropriate is saying it nicely, whereas criminal is more accurate and abusive.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, remember everyone to like the button. Yes, you guys put the like button and all of that. And subscribe to Catherine High Crimes of Scientology. Subscribe to her channel because she's going to be doing more lives. And I think you have to have 1,000 subscribers or something to do a live or
Yeah, you have
something.
to have 1,000 subscribers and I think the 4,000 or 400 hours of watch time. So I'm going to be teaming up with my husband Julian. So some people may know him, um, who are Scientologists, but we were hoping to start doing some filming and get some videos out there to share our stories.
Good.
Julian has experience going to the Delphian School in Oregon, as well as the Delphi School in LA. He was on staff with me at LA Org. Um, I'm an LA kid who grew up at Pac Base with Hollywood people. So, there's lots of stories to share. And I hope that through this journey, um, we can create a nice system and community to support those who are leaving Scientology, who have left Scientology, who are struggling and need or want to leave Scientology. I just want them to know that there is help. There are people who you can just literally text, call, and be like, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. And then we'll help you. We'll step up and we'll help you get through it.
Definitely. Here with Carolyn writes, the Larry Nassar case took a long time, and hockey kids, the same thing. Meet us in Clearwater. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Caroline, for the offer. Yeah, we're aware that the cases take a long time to put together, and that's why we need them not to take that long anymore,
Yeah.
because it's now been 73 years. So we know, like the back of our hand, exactly how this organization operates. We're getting the facts exposed, and now we need people to actually start doing the heavy lifting that's required in order to tie all these loose ends.
Yeah.
All of our case files need to be recovered by the police, and then
Yeah.
those
And that's
case
when,
files literally have our abuse that they did to us as kids, the reports, us telling them that we had been SA'd, and them discussing how they were going to clear that out of our head to get a floating needle, and then you'll all of a sudden forget that you were SA'd. Things like that are the illegal aspects of this organization that need to be exposed and need to be brought to justice, because they were doing this to kids, a ton of minors. Every minor was exposed to the same thing. I'm not saying every minor got SA'd, but every
yeah.
minor got exposed to be asked those disgusting questions and everything else.
Right. I had seen Amy said she was right there with or in with me. So again, that just proves that we have support. We have a community. We can get through this. You're not alone. You're not going to lose everything. You just feels like that. But I appreciate everyone coming and listening and being with us and creating space that we can hold and tell our stories. The more I think we tell our stories, the more we'll connect with further people. I really do believe that it will be like a movement.
Yeah. Help me understand how and when people decide auditing needs to be done, please. So it's all, I mean, every single person in there has a case file being built, because everyone gets told, oh, the thing about Scientology is that you're going to be building a case.
Well,
So,
let's also, yeah, let's take it from the perspective as for children, parents who feel that their children are difficult. They have a lot of tantrums, or they're not doing well at school, or they're lying. The parents' instant thing is, oh, let's go use Scientology. Let me get him in session. Let me get him on course. Let me have him get assists. That's the only solution. So that's how it happens, is like the decision to start your child in Scientology is because they have difficulties with something, and you as a parent don't have those tools, and so you just automatically go to Scientology because that's your only toolbox.
Yeah, that's exactly how it happens, you guys. No more sugar coating. That's exactly what we're saying. No more sugar
Yeah.
coating. Like, the truth needs to be served exactly for what it was. The facts need to be exposed, and the kids need to be helped.
Yeah.
Pam, I'm so sorry that this cult made for psychos and pedos hid under a blanket of religion. Absolutely sick that we don't get how that can even be allowed in 2023.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pam.
Yeah.
Thank you for understanding that very clear fact, because that is something that we needed understood earlier. The earlier the better.
Yeah.
Amy, just search, I adopted you in my heart today. I'm your sister now. Monica pissed me off today. I don't know you had a sister until I heard her on the video today. I love you. Oh, Amy, that's so nice. Oh yeah, you guys, my sister. My sister, my sister, my sister.
We should do a one about sisters soon.
Yeah, Catherine and I have a
Very
whole,
similar sisters.
yeah, very similar. And again, you guys were exposing that, and we're calling them out because hopefully they will wake up one of these days when they realize what in the hell they got involved in.
Yeah.
So sooner and later they're gonna figure it out. Sooner and later they're gonna have to now be in a position to answer and defend why kids are exposed to this. And the day that narrative changes is the day you'll see people leaving Scientology. Oh no, I had nothing to do with it. Oh no, I just did it a little bit, but not really got into it. Because again, the facts are not something that can be manipulated into a defense. It's like what happened in there is indefensible. Everything that was done to kids.
Yeah.
Did you have one that you wanted to read?
No, I'm
Oh,
just
okay.
trying to squint to read them because I didn't wear my glasses. But I do have to start
Silent
getting going because
skills.
I have to go make my family dinner.
Yeah, no, we're almost through the end, you guys. This one from Rabbit Kisses. Pursue 1983 deprivation of rights case in U.S. District Court. No caps on damages. Additionally, pursue punitive damages against David Miscavige and his enabler attorney Monique Yingling. Absolutely, you guys. So I've been on the case of Monique Yingling since the very start of my videos here. So, all right, you guys. Well, thank you much for joining us today in this conversation as we continue to advocate and showing up. And it always helps us to be heard and to expand this message and to have the more the merrier, the more advocates we can get for these kids, the better. So
Yeah.
we're just getting started. This is just the very beginning. We've done so great so far. So we're so appreciative for all of your support. And we'll continue showing up here every day, asking questions, demanding answers, and, advocating on behalf of, first and foremost, the kids, and then everyone else too.
Perfect. Yes.
All
Thank you
right.
guys for listening. I love the support. It makes such a difference. And I hope to talk to everyone soon.
Okay. Bye-bye. Have a great Friday, everyone.
Bye.